It is reported, only 7% of phishing crimes are reported. Rest are not. People feel hesitant to report. They don't think that if you've lost a small amount of money, 100, 200, 500, $1,000, that is worth reporting and going through the legal hassles. So it's underreported. In India, we estimate about 1/10, but globally 7% only are actually reported. When the Eiffel Tower was sold 100 years ago for some $80 million by a scammer to a scrap dealer, he did not, the scrap dealer who spent $70 million did not report it to the police. So even large amounts are not reported necessarily because of embarrassment and other things. So much so that he tried to sell it again the next month. That is how phishing works. And that's how crime works. So that's why you have just 7% reporting. Then there is very little traceability of scammers. You know, they can erase their footprints. They can do what they want and then deactivate, throw away the SIM card. They can take money out of a bank account and the bankers don't know how to find them, right? Because ultimately money goes out of an account. Because modern technology makes it possible to easily evade your fingerprints, you know. We know that. The banker is nodding here, yes. The customers hold enterprise responsible. Unfortunately, the customer got scammed. The customer thought that there was something they were doing right and they made a mistake, but they hold the enterprise responsible. The enterprise that was misrepresented to them, or the bank they deal with, which lost the money. Actually, the bank didn't lose the money, it's the customer that lost the money in a transaction that appeared perfectly legitimate to the bank, but then they will hold the bank responsible. This is all across the globe. What numbers you can see. It is a problem everywhere. It is a problem everywhere because human beings, 5% of the population, are sociopath and they will do it. So we have some sociopaths in the audience here. Welcome. This is what phishing looks like. I'll just take a moment to deconstruct it, how it happens on a smartphone. There is a scammer, D, that you see. There is a mobile number or a header. He is the sender. There is a recipient. There is a network. There is an enterprise that is misrepresented, perhaps, ABC there. There will be a type of scam and there will be a call to action. 3 of these are very important. Who the sender is, what is the type of scam or how that scam has been attempted, and the call to action, that link. This link may be false, the content will be false and misleading, or it creates anxiety or whatever, and the scammer has to be there. He will be masquerading as someone else. He'll try to evade detection, but he has to be there, and it should be possible to detect, and we do it. Our tech does this. These are some India-specific numbers. They are also very large. 60 billion SMS messages, focusing on SMS only right now. 60 billion SMSs in a month, commercial SMSs. So even if it's a small percentage, very, very small percentage, there will be a very large number of scams being attempted. There is increasing digital adoption by users. There's a 4 to 5 times increase from 450 million to 1,100. Almost the whole population now has access to the internet. Smartphone users, 350 to 850. Digital commerce and smartphone in India means you use it for making payment. Most of you would know about the UPI story in the country. It's used for making payments. Every small payments, very, very small payments, also in India now get made by smartphones. So everybody is using it for banking. Digital purchases have gone up from 8 to 40 million per day. Financial transactions have gone from 40 to 400 million per day. And the MSMEs on digital platform from 2 to 10. So there is a huge increase, as you can see, in India. And that's reflected in the numbers that you see on the right side. The billions of messages that go, very large number of which are transactional or informational or alerts and all that. And that's where the phishing happens. Now, in those 60 billion messages, 120 to 150 million are phishing messages. 60 to 75 million unique citizens are vulnerable, are attacked, and citizens potentially get scammed, 0.1 to 0.3 million, and 35 to 45,000 reported every month. These are the modes that are used. The access has been broken on the first side because fake job offers constitute a very large number, very large number of scams. Then banking, investment, reward, trading tips, fake electricity bills, others, total of 100%. This is in the commercial A to P space, and P2P is at the bottom, where a mobile number is used to scam, to initiate the scam. That also, fake job offers is half. The largest job offer scam was actually $500 million, not in India, somewhere else. So job offer scams are popular. This is an interesting slide, just a moment. 80 to 90% of total attacks use a URL or a WhatsApp chatback link in India in SMS. And mobile numbers, numbers to call, or some email or something else, those are the call to action. What the scammer is inducing, what action he is inducing in the recipient. But predominantly these are fake websites and chatback links. And you will see we have representation. We'll have representation in the panel from Google and Meta, because we are partnering with them to disable these kind of activities. They will be able to tell you more. I won't talk about it here. Scammers are becoming smarter and faster. Faster to the extent that the website that they put up disappears in the next few hours. So you can't take them down. They will take it down themselves. Takedowners, you can subscribe to their service. They will help you take down, but the process is legal and it takes time. There are faster methods to block the site from access. Like for instance, if Google Web Risk is used, Google can easily block the access to that site from its own browser and from partner browsers like Safari and Firefox, so that the site is not reached even if it is up. There are 6 components here listed on the left side. This solution that we are discussing is unique in the world. It brings a number of important components together. Let me go around. World-class partnerships, the right side. World-class partnerships, a blockchain-based exchange so that evidence gets recorded and is shared responsibly with the actors that need to have that information at that time in a totally legal manner. end-to-end actions and incident response, all of that is facilitated, and also information about that can be recorded so that it can be analyzed and acted upon in real time. The tech uses the latest of technologies like generative AI to detect intent and excitement, etc., in the content of the message. Gold standard of efficacy. It's a number which, when I quote, you will find surprising. All of you who work in tech would know that classification algorithms do not result in very high accuracy, but we demonstrated 99.5% correct calling out of scam when it was tested in a regulatory sandbox. And it's real-time and scalable. 60 billion messages, it's able to handle that workload. We are able to determine phishing or not phishing, the decision, in less than 50 milliseconds. So it doesn't even add delay to the path. It's near instantaneous. So,
our phones are our window to the world, to new opportunities, and to new possibilities. But with every click comes a risk, making us more vulnerable than ever before. Millions across the world are victims of phishing scams each year, causing staggering financial losses and eroding customer confidence in brands and digital channels. With sophisticated and ever-evolving scammer tactics, low reporting rates, and outdated solutions, the threat of phishing looms large. Comprehensive solutions, which employ the latest technologies to identify and prevent such attacks, are the need of the hour. Introducing a new paradigm in scam prevention, Wisely ATP. Powered by cutting-edge AI and machine learning technologies, Wisely ATP proactively identifies, prevents, and eliminates phishing attacks in real time, protecting end users. ATP comprises of 4 powerful patent-pending engines. 1. Sender Reputation Engine leverages technology such as Web of Trust to evaluate the trustworthiness of the sender of a message, assessing various factors including past behavior and historical data. 2. Semantics Engine goes beyond simple keyword matching. Large language models and NLP techniques are utilized to understand the meaning, context, and the exact intent of the message. 3. Call to Action Engine flags suspicious CTAs, including malicious URLs and WhatsApp accounts, leveraging CNN and LLM vision models. 4. Evaluation Engine, our master engine that ties it all together, using deep learning to comprehensively evaluate each message. All of this happens real-time, in less than 50 milliseconds, autonomously with no human intervention and with end-to-end data privacy. But our engines don't stop there. Through self-learning and adaptability, we stay ahead of scammers, adapting to new use cases, patterns, behaviors, and tactics. And our strategic partnerships with tech giants such as Google, WhatsApp, and other law enforcement authorities. ATP helps eliminate the root cause of the scam at its source, all made possible through our blockchain-based exchange. With over 99% efficacy and less than 0.5% false positive rate demonstrated even during our sandbox with a regulator, Wisely ATP sets a new standard in scam prevention. From protecting over 1 billion users to shaping the anti-phishing landscape, Wisely ATP stands as a testament to the power of greenfield innovation in safeguarding the digital landscape.
So now let me invite the product manager, Mr. Praveen Kumar, to share with you the impact. Very quickly, one slide, please come. This is Praveen. He is the product manager. He will discuss the impact that this solution has had.
Good morning, everybody. It's a privilege and honor to be here to showcase some of the impact that Wisely ATP has created for a few of our customers during the last few months. If you look at it, right, more than 15 million smishing messages were identified and prevented by this platform, and more than 4.2 million Indian citizens were protected from the scams in real time, right? And approximately 75,000 call to actions, that includes URLs, WhatsApp chatback links, email addresses and phone numbers were identified and reported on this platform. And we also identified more than 65,000 scam senders, right? That includes A2P and P2P senders, and are also reported back. So this all is happening, right? The elimination is also happening. The ecosystem partnerships are also happening within less than 5 minutes of what we identify on this platform. So I take this opportunity to introduce the next section, which is our Wisely ATP Spotlight, which is going to empower users also. So now I would like to call upon Uday Kumar Reddy, Chairman CEO, Tanla Platforms Limited, and Anil Kumar Lohoti, Chairman, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India.
What should we do now?
Now I request the users can scan this particular QR code, and if you have received any particular malicious message during any period of time, you can actually paste that message here on this chatbot, and this chatbot will help you tell whether the particular message is a scam message or a clean message. So the power is in the hands of the users. They can leverage this technology, this chatbot, to actually check if a particular message that they intend to click could be as malicious or not.
Thank you. And I would request Chairman TRAI, Mr. Lahoti, to share his thoughts on this launch.
Good morning. Mr. Uday Reddy, Mr. Sunil Vajpayee, distinguished industry leaders and experts, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I thank Tanla Platforms for inviting me on this occasion of inauguration of their new product. Thank you. Tanla Platforms has been doing, as we have seen, excellent work on detection and prevention of cyber attacks. Mr. Vajpayee has beautifully explained the excellent work being done by them. And as they just now showed us, last year at the MWC, Tanla Platforms unveiled the anti-phishing solution called Wisely ATP and offered it to the industry. And today the new tool that is Spotlight, which has been inaugurated today, would be a further step forward in that journey. However, I would like to say that the problem of phishing is quite severe. Mr. Vajpayee has illustrated it with so much of statistics and all pervasive. So hence, continuous effort by all stakeholders is necessary to tackle the problem. I am sure that the experts who would be sharing their perspective in the session that follows would deliberate on this aspect in the panel discussion. In today's highly connected digital era, phishing poses a grave danger. It preys on human vulnerabilities through deception and social engineering, and exploits the trust, the human emotions of fear, lure, etc., to compromise sensitive information. Individuals can suffer financial losses and identity theft. Businesses face financial or reputational harm, operational disruption, and legal consequences. Such crimes erode the trust in digital economy. So, combating phishing demands a multifaceted approach. I would say we need a combination of robust technological defense, that is, it should empower the businesses to proactively monitor and respond to the threat. Policy and regulation. Effective regulation such as those bolstering data protection in India provide a much needed framework for this. At the same time, we have to strike a balance between safeguarding users and nurturing innovation also. User education. We must launch, we are already doing, but it has to be very aggressive, widespread awareness campaign so that every citizen deals digital communications responsibly and with alertness to spot and report phishing attempts. Proactive industry collaboration. No single entity can win this fight alone. Partnership between the businesses, regulators, law enforcement, and cyber security experts are essential for sharing intelligence, coordinating responses, and closing the gaps that phishers exploit. The launch of tools like the ATP Spotlight represents a step in the right direction. It enables businesses to play an active role in safeguarding their customers. The telecom sector is a natural vanguard in this battle, as SMS and voice channels remain favored avenues for phishers. Mr. Bajpayee has shown it with so much of statistics. This collaborative effort demonstrates the power of our industry to come together, and I commend all involved in bringing this tool to fruition. It's imperative that we not only respond to the phishing threats of today, but also anticipate and prepare for the future. Emerging technologies like AI and deep fakes carry the potential to increase the sophistication in these attacks. Staying ahead of the curve demands proactive investment in research and development along with swift adaptation. So, I would say we have to act with resolve and responsibility. We should combine our strengths of technology, policy, and commitment for user safety, and to create an environment of trust and security in the digital landscape. With this, I wish Tanla platforms and all participants in today's deliberations all the success in their endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lahoti. Now we come to the exciting part of the proceedings, the panel discussion. I would invite the members one by one and introduce them to you. First is the moderator, Mr. Sanjay Kapoor. Mr. Kapoor, please. He's a luminary in telecom. He's shaped the trajectory of Airtel for many, many years. Very well-known person. Now he's has a plural career. He invests in early stage. He consults and invests and advises early stage startups. He's in board positions in many large companies in India and around the world. He has been a board member of GSMA, so I may caution the panel that they could get into trouble with GSMA if. Next, I would invite Mr. Drupad Shah. He's the head of financial crime prevention at the ICICI Bank. His expertise in financial crime prevention and his strategic and operational experience in banking add a unique and essential voice to our discussions on banking and financial security. Next, Mr. Manish Agarwal. He is the Executive Vice President at HDFC Bank. Manish brings a wealth of experience and expertise in strategic planning, customer service, mergers and acquisitions, and more. He has a deep understanding of the financial sector's intricacies and is a contributor to discussions on the future of banking and financial services. I would now invite Mr. Badr Salmi. He is the global head of Google Web Risk, so he keeps us safe online. His work on Google Cloud Web Risk Service provides threat intelligence about malicious websites and phishing pages. He has focused on reducing and proliferation of malware, phishing, and fraud on the web by leveraging Google's scale and products such as safe browsing and reCAPTCHA. All of you are familiar with that. Next, I invite Mr. Nilesh Birud, head of digital IndusInd Bank. He brings a wealth of experience from IndusInd Bank and other leading institutions. His expertise encompasses a wide range of critical areas in the global digital banking space, including internet and mobile banking. And I also invite Ms. Nina Cummins. She is the head of connectivity strategy and is legal and policy expert in the field of telecommunication regulations. Before Meta, she has been a partner and head of the telecoms regulatory practice in a prestigious law firm. She has represented interests from both sides of the table, which would bring nuance and balance to the discussions here. Welcome to the panel, and over to you, Mr. Kapoor. Oh, sorry. I didn't see him. Where is he? You're here. Yeah, please. I welcome Dean Francois of the London Business School. He provides direction to the business school, and he's an economist. He has worldwide influence. His alumni network is so big, he was telling me last evening, and sometimes he gets misrepresented in criminal activities to his own alumni network. He's a deceptive person himself. Yesterday evening, I thought he was busy eating what was being served, but I found that he had been hearing all the conversation and reacted with some great insights to what was happening. So I'm sorry I didn't see you, and I missed. My apologies. to the moderator and to the panel for having missed this. And I now look forward to all the discussions. Thank you very much.
So very good morning to all of you, and I hope you're having a great MWC. I'm sure the themes are unfurling, and we are going to have some continuity this morning as well. The format that we'll follow is that I will give some opening statements just to set the context for this panel discussion. I would then, in no particular order, ask all the panelists to give their opening remarks, a few lines about what they want to speak on the subject and the relevance of what we are discussing. And then we'll get on to some pointed questions to the experts on the panel. So I think to begin with, it's no guesses that the number of people and type of people who are involved in cyber and phishing crimes today actually range from petty thieves on one side to SIM jackers on the other side, to have organized criminals on the third side. It's a very large spectrum. And when you see the organized crime, you cannot delineate even geopolitical causes to be supporting some of these. Nobody admits it, but everybody speculates what's going on. Now, given that context, the world of cybercrime and the world of phishing is getting complicated because you, in the guise of data, are bringing many elements together. You're bringing in the access, you're bringing in the devices, you're bringing in the applications, you're bringing in the content, you're bringing in the storage, you're bringing in the security. All this interplay has to collectively protect the daemon. Because if you don't do it, then you are leaving some uncovered surface. And it's very interesting that somebody called Kevin Mitnick, who was once a hacker himself, wrote a book, and he wrote a book on social engineering. And basically what he described in that was the art of manipulating people to give up information. And he says that millions of dollars are spent on creating firewalls, on creating encryptions, on creating secure access devices, and he feels all this is a waste. This is a waste because the most vulnerable link in the chain is not getting addressed. And what is not getting addressed is the human, right? He believes that phishing attacks increasingly exploit human psychology rather than technological vulnerability. And if that has to be tackled, then we have a long road to cover. And I think this gets substantiated by Bruce Schneier, and he very jokingly says that users are always going to pick up dancing pigs over security every time, right? And that's true. That's absolutely true. At board levels, in board discussions, security and cybersecurity is right up in the order. When it comes to the risks registers of the companies, this is very much included in almost every risk register that I'm aware of. But when it comes to real action, real money to substantiate and deal with this cause, I think the jury is still out, right? There's a lot desired over there. And that's what we are going to discuss. I absolutely agree with what Telecom TRAI, Chairman TRAI left behind to say we have to deal with it in a very collaborative manner. And that's because the basic cardinal rule of data and data services is the winner can't take it all, right? It is such a large field, you have to share it. No one person can take it. And it's for that very reason that the solution has to come through a collective effort as well. And I just described the diversity of the players who are there in this field. With that, in no particular order, Dean Francois, we could start with you, and then everybody could give their opening remarks.
Well, thank you. And the first thing I would say is with regard to the cost of phishing, my thought was actually it's much bigger than anything we saw in the slides, because I don't know that the slides accounted for all the efforts all of us are investing in protecting ourselves from all this criminal activity. And as an educator, I would just remind us that while we all agree education matters, because the human is often the weakest links, it's not like there are not other things that would be good for humans to be educated on. And where is the trade-off? What is being lost when we spend so much of our resources, including people's ability to grab education, to address this criminal activity, when frankly people are many other things that would be better for them. And then I can't resist, because I was introduced as a deceptive person, to bring you my deceptive perspective. Is, yes, I'm the dean of a premier business school in the world. Geopolitically, I don't think I'm such an important person. But it's staggering to see the effort spent on impersonating me compared to the potential payoff. And I'm shocked how cheap it must be to impersonate me and everyone else in the world. So there is a tension there between how easy it is to deploy this phishing technology compared to how costly it is for all of us to protect ourselves against this technology. So I very much welcome these efforts.
Thank you. Nina?
Yeah, I have realized I'm now deceptive as well, Sanjay, because I realized the photo I have has a very bouncy blow dry in it, and I don't look like that at all. So I apologize in advance. I should have thought that one out better. Yeah, really interesting presentation and some of those statistics. I'm going to speak a little bit today from the perspective of what WhatsApp is doing and how WhatsApp is actually architected and structured to try and build in that tolerance to make it more difficult for these types of attacks. I don't think anyone can ever protect themselves 100%. I say that as a business. I say that having had my regulator hat on, and I say that as a consumer, and also from being much more aware now. When I think about my mother, she uses WhatsApp a lot. She's not technically literate at all. She doesn't know how to work a computer or anything like that, nor is she going to learn at her age. But I do worry about her, being subject to these types of attacks. So this is something that I take on board personally from that perspective too. I think just looking at then the WhatsApp perspective, obviously we're designed as a private messaging platform, so it's not a broadcast platform, and the majority of the messages are one-to-one. So again, this is, having these attacks which are one-to-many is not intuitive in how the actual product or service was designed. And I will come on, I said, to talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges we have and how we try and address this at infancy, if you like. So from the account registration throughout that life cycle in terms of activity during use of the messaging services, and then of course relying very much on users to self-report or to report others, and I loved kind of the demo earlier as well in the Wisely ATP. But I'll stop there and not give everything away just yet and hand over then to Nilesh.
Excellent. Nilesh?
Thanks for inviting us. This is very interesting thing in at least in terms of the India story, because we are actually doing digital payment and other digitizations at very mass scale. So since the digitization is increasing, the another side, the dark side of it is the scams and the weak link with the human, the education and all these things is also has to be catch up. So the part which even government is driving, but the main service provider like a bank and all, the one thing which I am seeing is the bank, even though they are actually leapfrogging on the digital payment and all, but somehow at the back of the it, we have to also educate the customer, because that's where we have seen, even though you can apply millions of dollars technological and all these things, but it's not a techie guy who is doing a scam. It's even the normal modus of operandi just to catch the mindset of the people and then snip the money out of it. So it's not we need a technical knowledge to get the money, at least on the digital world and all. So that's where I have seen, like Sanjay has mentioned, we have a lot of firewalls, we have a lot of encryption and all these things. But all this is just to stop a techie hackers to enter. But what about the other one, which actually plays with the mindset and create an environment which looks like a very genuine one, but ultimately it's a scam. So somewhere I see that that is increasing day by day, and bank and other entities need to look at that to how to minimize those part rather than not only technical thing. Technical thing anyways will follow as a part of the journey. So this is what I am thinking of this thing further.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Badar.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Badar. I'm one of the product managers at Google. I've been at Google about almost 10 years now, actually fighting spam, phishing, malware, unwanted software, fraud and bots for almost a decade. And you know, one thing that's kind of staggering, and I agree actually with Francois on his observation. I thought these numbers are actually big, but I think they're much bigger than we think. And I think the way what we're seeing working either, you know, in some of our products like the browser and Chrome and so on, and working with our customers and platforms that we've partnered with, it's really, I think this is the new gold rush for a lot of attackers out there. They found an easy way, quote unquote, to actually make easy money. And when you look at actually what we're getting reported from, you know, everyone we work with, it won't take only one solution, one company. There is no one silver bullet that's going to solve this problem. It's going to happen through us actually working together. And as you can see on this panel, you know, there's people from all backgrounds and different parts of the stack that are actually coming together to make actually this stop. I think there is a perspective that I've learned in my 10 years fighting spam and malware and phishing at Google is that when you're a defender, your life is much harder as if you're an attacker, because all you need to find as an attacker is that one crevice where you can actually slip in. But as a defender, you need to make sure that you cover the whole stack. And that's a really hard task. We're lucky at Google that we can actually close a lot of these gaps, but actually through partnerships like we're doing with Tanla and others, we're able to actually go a step further and go up the network layer. For example, we'll go, you know, down the application layer and protect users with safe browsing. We'll work with certain platforms who uses our products to actually protect, you know, the link sharing within those platforms to make sure that those don't get shared, etc. And so I believe that actually what we're learning really this year is that I don't think that this is going to go away very soon. It's going to take a lot of us to work together, but it's also going to take a lot of work for us, I think, as industry leaders to make sure that we work to protect what's coming next. Because automation is getting simpler, and the techniques that we're using today, like the use of AI, I think everybody's heard of AI lately in generative AI, a lot of that is going to make our lives harder because it's going to allow a lot of automation, and that's where I think all of us need to come together so that we can leverage these new technologies, infuse them into the technology. And one last thing I'd say is that I agree 100% that user education is important, and I think that it's important and it's on us as well to make it as invisible for the user as well in our protection, right? So making sure that the user actually doesn't even have to think about, you know, the phishing attack that targeted them, and finding a way to make sure that that never hits their inbox, that never hits their messages, that never hits any way that they could be reached out, or like, for example, a browser navigation should never happen, for example, in the first place. And I think that's a very important thing that we can do through technology, and we're hoping to achieve in the future. So.
Thank you. Manish.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the esteemed guest, audience, and the panelists. I'll be coming from the practitioner's perspective, so I may not talk more on the technicals. So if you see the fraud, at the end of the day, the fraud is a behavior, and it goes as long as the civilization goes. If you see from an Indian perspective, the mythology that we read, the first firewall was drawn by Lakshman when he drew Lakshman Rekha. Okay. The first imposter or the impersonation fraud was done by the demon Ravan. So when he kidnapped the Mata Sita. So the perspective is that the fraudsters will stay there because it's a behavior, and the technology may evolve, the technology may change, okay, but the behavior is not going to change. We have not changed in last 5,000 years, if you actually see. So what is needed, and I agree with you the point that you made initially, that it's the human mind which is most vulnerable. And if you see ecosystem in terms of a payment platform, And I'm talking for the ecosystem, not individual to any specific bank or a protocol or a network. It is very well oiled and secured. What is getting impregnated and penetrated is the human mind. And I think that's where collectively the collaboration that we have to do to find a solution to this, and also the awareness piece. And I think that's a very, very underrated item. We at our bank have taken many exercise. We have launched campaign, and most of other banks also have done in India. But I think that's where we have to increase the awareness, and that's going to be the solution.
Last but very important.
Good morning, everyone. See, as a banker, the biggest thing that I actually worry is losing the trust of the customer. And as was also presented in the presentation, is if the customer loses money, the first thing they will want is the banker to protect their money. So while we can easily take cover saying, okay, look, you gave everything, but the fact is that it is an assumption and it's a fact that the customer will always be vulnerable. He or she will always be swindled. Now, as a banker, we need to do more steps to ensure that we are able to stop those funds from moving out. See, finally, we have to appreciate and understand the fact that it is the customer's hard-earned money. So we have to, as a banker, the first thing is protect. And which is where I think some of the panelists have said, so here we feel that the technology which has been used by the fraudsters is moving at a much faster pace than at what the pace the bankers are actually moving. Like for example, if you see AI, most of the fraudsters have moved to that, whereas here we are still coming to terms with the fact that how do we use AI models for fraud, while we will have some semblance in forms of models, in forms of some other things, but honestly, fraudsters are moving at a much faster pace. So here, as a banker alone, we will not be able to do this, obviously, then which is where the question of collaboration will come, not only with the other bankers, but it will also involve with developers, software programmers, regulators, everywhere. As a conjoint effort only we will be able to solve this particular problem. Because otherwise you are always going to have customers who are going to lose money, and that actually is not a healthy sign anywhere in the world. So these are actually, the phishing is one of the biggest such problems which all of us are grappling. I'm sure most of us in the room would have been a victim at some point. Maybe we might not have lost money, maybe we would have realized the fraud at an earlier stage, but the fact is we have all been actually attacked at some point or the other.
No, absolutely. And I think what is coming across as a thematic throughout is the human mind's vulnerability, and how do we deal with that. So I think moving on to questions, Nina, to you, and you come from a world of encrypted messages end to end, so much so that you make a claim that even you guys don't know what is the content, and you can't have access to that. In the midst of all this, how do you really deal with the so-called malicious actors? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, I'll say that. So on the one hand, when we introduced end-to-end encryption by default in WhatsApp in 2016, it was very much with having the user front and center because we wanted to protect their privacy. Now today we have a different need to protect them from getting these types of messages, but choices are made that it's an end-to-end encrypted service. But as Badir was saying, a lot of the challenge is trying to make sure that this doesn't get into the user's inbox, so to speak, before it even starts. So we have a couple of tools, I can say, to our hand. So first of all, in registration, anyone using WhatsApp knows that in order to register, you have to have some form of verification, whether that's through an SMS or whether that's through a callback service, and you can actually turn on optional two-factor authentication. But as part of that registration process, we also use a number of antecedents and cues. So by antecedents and cues, what I mean is we have machine learning technology which runs 24/7, 365 days a year, and that tries to spot patterns because, of course, we can't see the content itself. So it will look for things like, does this computer network, is it one that has tried to register lots and lots of numbers before, all together very closely and in a similar temporal period? Is this coming from an IP address we know has been problematic, has maybe been banned before as well? So those are some of the types of examples. And just to give you some India statistic figures, we have monthly reports, which many of you may be familiar with. And for the month of December last year, from the 1st until the 31st, there were roughly about just under 7 million WhatsApp accounts banned, and about 20%, so just around about 1.6, 1.7, don't correct me on the numbers, but so it's more than 20% then, because it's 1.7 million numbers were actually taken off and banned before they even got into use. So that shows you just kind of the effectiveness of some of that technology. And then, as I mentioned, we also have it during the use case itself. So what we will do is we will look for other types of indicators. One thing which I wasn't that familiar with, which is a cue, is, for example, the typing indicator. And I thought the typing indicator at the top was just a way of stalking whether my mother was reading my messages and about to respond. But actually, we can also then detect whether or not someone is consistently sending lots of messages without that typing indicator, because that's normally an indication that it's not an individual on the other side. And again, spotting patterns like someone trying to send automated or bulk messaging, within the first 5 or 15 seconds of signing up to a WhatsApp number that they're trying to send hundreds of numbers as well. We do have a guidance, a white paper in this. I'd invite you to read it. It's on our website. You can find it on the Meta family of apps website as well, which is about stopping abuse and fighting automated and bulk messaging, because that is a breach of our terms of service, and when it's reported to us, we take it very seriously. And then just very quickly, because I know you've got to get to everyone else, we are also very reactive and very dependent upon everyone here, upon users reporting incidences to us, and then that's how the machine learning technology can learn as well. And what we've tried to do is give a number of tools. So, for example, in recent years, since about 2020, we have also introduced restrictions on the number of messages that can be forwarded and to how many people they can be forwarded. And also most recently to saying if you have something labeled as highly forwarded, that can only go to one group at a time rather than it used to be 5 groups. And we have also then introduced easier features so that when you're in the app itself, you can long press and hold and it automatically report that, and you can give a reason as to why it is you want to report it. I mean, there's many more tools out there, but I'll just stop so that you can get to some other folks.
Sure. I'm sure that it's a continuous effort, because the scamsters are trying to run faster than you as well, right? So, Dean Francois, you deal with and meet so many leaders all across. You're developing leaders in your world-class institution. How do you think this whole stuff about market forces shaping cybersecurity and responding to the cybersecurity, and what sort of economic models do you think are required or incentives required to make this really happen and accelerate?
Actually, this is simple to deal with, and you alluded to it in your opening remark. It's the fact that I think we all understand this is a survival risk for our organizations. And as a leader and a trainer of leaders, you try to think hard about how do you set appropriate incentives for people to make the right choices. But this is something that is not a choice. It is about, and I think for every one of our institutions, users or promoters of tools, it's about the survival, and therefore, like you said, the cybersecurity, I bet now is at the top of the risk register everywhere. I know with my board, with my CIO, the first item for conversation is always cybersecurity. So to me, what is more difficult is what are we losing? Because this has become for all of us the number one issue that we have to deal with, because all of us understand how incapacitated we could become. And the consequence, I think it was very interesting in the slide, is that if we get incapacitated because of a cyber attack, then the trust in us is being lost. We're just the victims. And I don't think it's always true that the public understands the forces that we are dealing with. So you know, as economists, we talk about setting appropriate incentives, but there's another element which is about guaranteeing the participation, right? It's incentive constraints and participation constraints. And I think cybersecurity is at the level of these kind of participation constraints. The one bigger question I would ask is, at what point, when as an industry, and then I would say you all come up with innovation, at what point and in what forum do you discuss the openness of this innovation to crime infiltration and messing up our lives? Because I think we can all think of a continuum where some technologies have no opening for crime to come and interfere with my day-to-day living. But there's probably at the other extreme some technology that is so crime-prone that the world will be better off without it. And that's the question I have for all of you is, where is it that someone is paying attention to not create a world where it's so easy for the crime that you make interactions impossible?
Yeah, and just a follow-up from here, how are you building it into your curriculum for the young leaders? How are you making sure this is going to get addressed by the next generation?
Well, so we do like all of you with the training that you give us. I mean, I like what Bader says, that he wants to make it seamless so that we don't, but we are not there yet. And so it's helping people understand that, you know, there's a saying that I like from one of our faculty members is survival is the first condition for effective leadership. And that's where it is. So in a way, like I say, it's easier to teach because it's not about the trade-off, it's about, are you going to be there tomorrow? And that's how bad it is in a way. So I'm glad that you all are pushing on this. Please help us out, make life easier.
Great. So Manish, you know, let's get down to the day-to-day issues. You know, what are the newer trends that you are seeing which are bothering you? You know, something on the ground that you're noticing to saying, I wasn't seeing this earlier. This is really, so, you know, what is it that you would share with all of us?
Okay. So, Sanjay, if you see, as far as the modus operandi is concerned, that's what you call in the normal language, you know, they are definitely evolving. So apart from the phishing, the new trend that if you ask me, which has come, that the fraudsters have started using the IVR session for extracting the OTP. So if you see, and again I go back to my previous question, to the previous perspective, that India is currently having more than 90-95% payment on the real-time basis. We contribute to 46% of the world's real-time gross settlement as a country. Okay. So what actually is happening, as soon as the instructions is passed on, the money is credited and it's onward transferred. So today, as soon as the fraudster makes its way in the victim's mind and he pushes him to press that button, share that OTP or authenticate and authorize that MPIN, you know, the money is gone. And there is no way at moment, and sir, specifically yesterday you talked about the public digital infrastructure. If you see from a design perspective, and as in when I think a bit more, probably something where we should work on further is that every payment that we are making, it should go within a specific clause that where we are making the payment, there only we can raise the dispute. And as soon as the dispute is raised, it should follow the same trail in the ecosystem, either for stopping the money on an onwards, onward remittance, and it's ultimately on the blockchain. Okay, even the entire core banking system and the NFS that we talk about, it's on the blockchain. Okay, it should talk about that blocking those particular accounts, blocking those payment platform, blocking those MCC as we talked about. So fraudsters are innovative. They are going to stay ahead of us. As we talk, these are the behavior. We will do this, they will do that, and they will always stay ahead. But the point and the reason why we are here, it's okay to become a fool. It's okay to become a fool once, twice, but absolutely not thrice. So the problem that we already have and we know, if we don't have a solution for that, okay, I think that's where we all have to work.
Yeah. So Badar, you you are the leading, one of the leading hyperscalers of the world, and you have to balance the privacy on one side and user protection and stuff like that, and then you have to deal with this. So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. Okay, we're good. Thank you. I think so. That's a very good question. The way I think there is in our group in safe browsing, particularly a web risk product, suite of products or reCAPTCHA. There are like some of the products I worked on. The way we actually approach it is how do we always strike that balance of protecting up to 5 billion devices with safe browsing, for example, and then how do we make sure that we do it in a way that we respect the user's privacy, and how do we do it in a way that we can actually fit in different parts of the ecosystem in a privacy-preserving manner. And a lot of the APIs that we actually provide, either within the browser through our ecosystem partnerships or through the web risk product for organizations, we try to actually design with privacy by default. So the thing that we do is that how do we make sure that we do not ingest unnecessary data? So for example, we have a large amount of organizations. We have thousands of organizations that today leverage the Update API that we provide. The Update API actually is a product that we first designed for Chrome, which allows it to do a few things. One, it can scale to hundreds of thousands of QPS if you want it. You download a version of our block list, which is one of the most comprehensive lists out there. And the beauty of it is that it's privacy preserving because we do, the way we've implemented the protocol is that you just need a hash prefix. And the hash prefix just calls our server, asks for all the collision that happened. We give you the hash prefixes that matched, and then you link that back to the original URL. Because under some regulations, for example, URLs are considered PIIs, it can contain PII, so we don't want to receive that fully from some customers. And so these are like some of the things that we do in terms of security, and like how do we actually provide a product that can scale for today 5 billion devices. It can live safely in most browsers you're using every day or OSs or communication platforms, and so that it can protect you without actually compromising privacy. We have a different approach actually that we brought on, which is today in your Chrome browser or on your account, you can actually go on and say, look, I'm actually okay as a customer, as a consumer, to share more data with you if it means it makes me safer. But what we do is that we make it very clear and explicit to the user. You can share with us the full URL because you consent to it so that we can protect you better, do real-time protection, etc., which we do not do by default because we need that actual consent from the user. What we're seeing is that a lot of users are opting in for this because of the fact that there is more and more rampant fraud actually happening and that they actually want that extra protection, right? And I think when we do that, we do it in a way because we're front and center in this fight. We, as I said, like we protect 5 billion devices day in, day out. The attackers we follow or don't follow circadian cycles, they work 24/7. And we do keep those, we do keep these APIs updated and so on. So when we make it available to our partners, to the companies we work with, we make sure that you can use them in a privacy-preserving manner so we can protect these billions of users without compromising their privacy. And for us, it's front and center and hyper important. I think other folks on this panel, like the WhatsApp teams, right, they follow those principles to make sure that we never put at risk the user's privacy. And I think that's extremely important, just to make sure that, users can trust us at the end of the day, right?
Excellent. So Nilesh, we talk about AI, ML, blockchain. How are you integrating these technologies into your fraud management?
Currently, all this AI, ML and all these things is even today also exist. It's not something which we realize now as a kind of transaction monitoring, as a kind of adaptive authentication and all these things. It was there. And obviously, day by day it's getting evolved because a lot of different patterns or a lot of different types of ways a fraudster or a genuine customer can interact with the banking channels and all that is actually what's changing. So it's there. The only, the biggest problem what we are facing is, see, we have, once the fraud happen, we have a lot of things at the back end to to monitor it, to stop the payment and all these things like what Manish has mentioned, since due to real-time payment, now it's become a little bit difficult because the money has been already cashed out from the ATM or from the remittances and all. But still, before it is reaching to account, we have a lot of fraud monitoring also, which anyway is an evolving process to monitor, is it coming from the genuine location of the customer, or it's a different country, or he's trying to a new device and all these things. Those patterns we anyway check as a kind of transaction monitoring. But what is more important is to stop the fraud from the source itself, rather than once it happened and then tracking it. So that's where I think we need to have this kind of ATS kind of solutions and all, so that we can actually stop at the source rather than building a lot of things at the back end. See, that will anyway continue, because the transaction may come as a remitter, as a beneficiary and all these things, but stopping at the source is the key to minimize it. That's what I am looking at from this thing. At least we have some mechanism to stop at the source. At the back end, we always have too many things to do, and anyway we are doing it also as a bank. Not only us, a lot of banks are doing. Either it's for the digital payment, card payment, or any sort of payment what we are having it.
Yeah. So Drupad, with you, obviously, anytime somebody loses money, right? I think he wants the bank to compensate him for what he lost, right? And so two questions. One, what is your view on technology and how technology is helping? And second, what do you see the regulators and the regulation is doing, the government is doing to support this cause? And do you think it's enough? Do you think it's too little?
I'll start with the second question first. See, at least in India, we have the NCRP portal, which is the national crime portal, which is there pan-India. I think that's a fantastic portal which these people have actually built in. Today now all the banks are necessary for us to work 24/7, and as far as I remember, almost some few hundred crores of funds have actually been blocked because of this particular initiative by the government. And now this being a unified portal, I think the response time from each of the banks is also fantastic. I mean, it's actually come down to 30 minutes where every bank is now supposed to respond. So that itself builds this. So the second step which we will need to do and maybe smoothen the process is returning the funds back to the customers. So while one step activity is done of blocking, now the second step of activity, and that is where a little bit might be there will be some changes in the regulation in the CRPC Act, which will necessitate and make it faster for us to return the money to the victims. Once you have that, the automatic trust in the ecosystem actually is also built by the victims. See, finally this entire ecosystem is going to work only with the consumers. If the consumers have lost trust, whatever digital technology you want to put is actually not going to work, because they are the end users. So I think that is where the government probably will have to move a little faster in terms of returning the money back, while the first part has been done fantastically well. Now going back to the first question, what is the technology? I think that is the only way forward. We will now have, I mean every bank at some form, shape and size has already done it, is merging the data, numerical data with the behavioral data. So like it was also said that how many keystrokes per second, or how do you type your keystroke. Now we know of late, at least in our bank, we have seen a few cases where you have these edu frauds which are happening, where the fraudster starts educating the customer about something, letting the customer earn some money, then gradually moving them into a much different realm which the customer would not have even visualized. Like for example, we have seen customers who have migrated from simple equity and directly moved into cryptos, only because the fraudster has taught them how to go over there, and it is when they enter there that is when the fraud seems to be happening, and the big money which is actually going out through that. So I think technology we will need to now see is the behavior of the customer changing in a short period of time, because we all know, and I mean all our children we have seen, no one's behavior changes overnight. It's a gradual process and it happens. How is it that the customer behavior is changing so fast? Today he was in equity, tomorrow is directly moving into multiples of crores into cryptocurrency. These are the things which we will now need to do in technology. And the other thing which we will need to do and which everyone has started doing is differentiating between a fraud and a scam. See, fraud, the customer was a unwitting party. But in the case of a scam, the customer is only doing all the transactions. The customer doesn't even know that they have been scammed till such time the actual money is lost. So there the differentiation now needs to be done, and even in the banks we will now need to write algorithms to identify a fraud and a scam. Today fraud and scams were used interchangeably, but I think there is a clear divide which is there, what is a fraud and what is a scam. A lot of our models today are not working on the scams, they are only working for the fraud part. We are now trying to do the retrofitting of the fraud into a particular scam model. That is somewhere where the technology will be needed, where we will need to build specifics for scams.
Yeah. Nina, you are there all over the world. You have stickiness with customers, and I'm sure problems come with stickiness as well. How do you deal with so many different regulations all across? And do you think regulations are doing enough, or they're making the job difficult for you, or they could make the job easy for you? And if there are any examples where you think in a particular country, it's really working very well, if that you could share with us.
I think it's a very good question, Sanjay, because often as well in this area, there is that tension between regulation keeping up with innovation or sometimes outpacing it and shaping how products and services should be designed. Even having been in a regulator, I'm always very, very nervous of the latter. I always think that innovation has to lead and then regulation to come along hand in hand, not necessarily follow, but I'm always very skeptical of something which is sort of forcing the design of products or services. Because that can also be detrimental from a consumer perspective. And if I take just some examples, we have a constant tension in Europe between, and Badr has touched on it as well, privacy and consumer protection. And some of the features which our engineers will come up with because they feel it will be assisting on a compliance pathway, if I can call it that. There are things that the users don't want. They just find it clunky, it's not the type of service they want, and it's almost an overload of information. So I think that's another tension that we have in this area, which is about educating users so that they can use the tools sensibly, but at the same time that they don't feel that the prompts that we have are spammy themselves. Because we do, for example, say to someone when they start to contact a person that isn't in their contact book, do you want to block, do you want to report? A simple example yesterday, I was in a taxi on the way back from one of the very many events here on the sidelines of MWC, and my driver, who was very lovely, offered to take me to the airport in a few days' time. So sent me, the WhatsApp number, and the first thing that pops up is, you don't know this person, do you want to block them? So I think it's perhaps, and sort of cut this short, is around I think it would help to have more of the regulators talking together and to discuss this. It comes to your point, Francois, about thinking about this at an industry level, but also at a cross sort of regulator level, because you often find that, what you are being in meetings discussing from a privacy regulator is very different from a consumer protection regulator, that would be very different from a financial services regulator. And I think that is the difficulty, is the siloed regulation and almost this deluge of regulation. And if we can get more people around the table, regulators, industry, user groups themselves, I think that will help to maybe shape the direction of the debate. And I think it's really critical we do this, not just for the services we have now, but we touched on it very briefly earlier around generative AI, deepfakes. That is just going to become more and more tricky. From our perspective, very quickly indeed. At the Munich Security Conference last week, which I'm sure Badr, Google, participated in as well, we have accords that we are trying to follow now. We've signed, at least at an industry level, to try and spot the new emergence of trends and similarities. And again, Francois, coming to your point, which is about trying to actually see at an industry level if we can come up with a joint solution, notwithstanding the fact that we all have very different services, they have very different architecture behind them, but at least with something new that we can try and build that in from the start and have more of an openness in terms of the standards, but the dialogue as well, to get some base consistency.
Yeah, great. Badr, probably my last question from you. And, are you seeing some similarities in the trends that are emerging globally on phishing and scams, or it is too regional, too country-based, and how does a company like Google deal with these smaller pockets of uniqueness, right? Because you have big platforms that address almost global issues.
Yeah.
When it comes to, or am I missing the point, it's all turning out to be very global and same, no matter which country.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it's funny because it's one thing we think a lot about, and when we do what we do is that I think, when we build purely security-focused products like safe browsing, web risk, reCAPTCHA, we were playing a game and you can play the game two ways. One is you play a whack-a-mole game where you block one aspect and then the attackers or the adversaries will take the other way behind you. They already had that door open. Or we can play a little bit of economics and do a little bit of game theory on what is the biggest incentive that actually the attackers has in this play. What we've done actually, and personally what I've been very excited about working on in the past few years, I've been fortunate to work on two products that actually protect billions of users between reCAPTCHA and web risk and safe browsing. And you can see that there is a common pattern that's very similar in these types of attacks, which is either the goal is to hijack the user's account so that I can steal their money from their bank account. Right? That's number one. Or maybe I will try to prey on some vulnerability in the human brain, which makes us want to get money fast and quick. Everybody loves free stuff. And unfortunately, that makes you give away more information like your credit card, etc. What we see, what's interesting, what we're trying to do now is how do we connect the dots between the moment that a good user is on a bad website. So with things like safe browsing, where we show warning to the user and we tell them, look, don't use this. And then on the other end, when a bad user is on the good website with reCAPTCHA, how do we detect that actually they've stolen those credentials and are trying to get into the bank account of the user? And so actually the way we've structured things on our end is we're looking at it at a higher level of, instead of looking at it through the lens of phishing, how about we look at it through the lens of account takeovers, where we see that actually phishing is just a vector to account takeovers, where bots are a vector to account takeovers, and we see that credential theft and credit card theft leads to actually the use of those credit cards on the merchant side, which we now detect with reCAPTCHA. But to answer your initial question, we're fighting organizations. We're not fighting individual hackers with their hoods, in their dark rooms. That's not the reality anymore. Like, today, we're fighting organizations that are probably sometimes better funded than us in security, and we need to be smart in the way we scale, the way we detect, and the way we look at the problem. And I think that this is how we've approached this issue. I think the last thing that I'll say is that one thing that's very interesting in terms of trends is, and I think everybody in this room who's working in protecting users, is how the next wave of AI, because we've been using AI for 10 years, 15 years, and LLMs are the new kind of big thing, but how do we make sure that we, as companies and leaders in this domain, stay ahead of how attackers are going to use this and use that game theory mindset, as opposed to look at it and try to play the whack-a-mole games? We're going to lose if we do that, because they're going to reach a new scale. We can reach that scale too, but I think in general, we're fighting global organizations. To answer your question directly, is that it's not just someone who's in India trying to phish Indian folks. It's not just someone in France trying to phish French folks. These are I think global organizations we're fighting back against.
No, very, very apt. Before we close this session, I'm looking for a single sentence closing remark from all of you, and we'll start from this side. So if you had the power to enact one immediate change to deter SMS, voice, or any other form of phishing, what would it be? What would you do?
Wisely ATP.
Wisely ATP. Wow, stand for that. Good.
So the same question?
Same question.
Okay. So while the answer may be the same, but yesterday so let me borrow one statement made by Churchill, because yesterday during the dinner we came across some discussion where Churchill was discussed. So I'm borrowing that quote, that this is not an end, and it is not a beginning of an end, but perhaps it's an end of the beginning.
Okay, good. 1 sentence, please.
Okay. I'd say innovation and collaboration is going to be the key here. I think for us as leaders, we need to keep innovating, and that innovation needs to be shared across the whole industry, with us working, across platforms, us working with banks, us working with industry leaders, and so on. So
Actually, innovation and collaboration, I think, is a common thread across all the presentations in the show this time. Open AI, open network, everything is around collaboration and innovation. Yes, Nilesh.
One sentence what I see here is, I can tell, is to educate the customer on the security. That's where India needs, actually.
Excellent. Neena.
I do like Badir's answer, but I'm going to say prevention, but with the consumer built in. So what's working for them?
Thank you.
Well, I'm left optimistic because of the technology we hear about today, but even more worried than I was coming in because of the introductory sentence. Deception is a force of nature. And when I hear you talk about innovation and collaboration, then my next question from this panel is, how do you protect yourself from exfiltration and the spies from those global organizations? We are dealing with something very serious here, and it's good that there is research happening to help us out, but let's just push. Deception is a force of nature, and we are in it together.
Fantastic. I think that's a great note to end the presentation. A big hand for a wonderful panel. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Good morning, everyone. May I request the audience to be seated for the next session, please? Good morning, everyone. Can I please request everybody to take their seats? We are about to start in a couple of minutes. Let people come in. May I request once again everybody to be seated? The session is about to begin. Great. Welcome everyone back to the session. So we start looking into how messaging is getting a makeover now, right? How Tanla is changing the whole experience of message getting delivered into the traditional inbox, the SMS inbox, which hasn't really changed in the last 35 years, right? We are used to the same experience, but in our next 1 hour, we're going to unveil how Tanla and Google have partnered together, collaborated together to bring about this makeover. And let's deep dive into the session right away. I invite Stephen Brau, who heads GTM for rich communication messaging globally, on stage and give us a deep dive into what RCS is all about.
Oh, okay. Let me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sonia Uday, for the opportunity, and Gurmukh as well. I'm excited to be here. Want to talk about why and how we're making native messaging interesting again. And in that topic is RCS. And I think we need to look at the history of this before we get into it. It's been around for a while. Why haven't we been talking about this topic back in 2007 or 8 or 9? Why are we in 2024? And the reason is while it was announced in 2007, it had a lot of fragmentation back then. So if many of you were around Mobile World Congress back then, it had multiple different specs in the industry, different APIs and implementation approaches on the server side, and many different clients on the smartphone side. It was too complicated. It had too much friction and fragmentation. So we got into this 9 years ago with the acquisition of Jibe. And even when we acquired Jibe, there needed to be some work with the operators and the GSMA to unify the spec. And that's where you see Universal Profile 2.4. With that, we finally had a common spec across the industry that then allowed us with the Jibe acquisition to start having a common back-end technology across the industry so that you could have one API to be able to send these messages. On that, then we worked with the industry to then have a common client. Because with a common client, then we're able to push updates, features, and things on a very regular basis. And that then allowed us to have an experience that anybody on Android could then have with rich messaging. That then led to what you saw last year, which is all these carrier announcements in Europe, North America, Asia, our friends from Cupertino, and then us saying that we're not 800 million anymore, now we're 1 billion. That all removing that fragmentation now makes it why we're here today and why we're talking about this topic. So RCS is not a OTT channel. It is an evolution of SMS. It is like going from black and white television to HD color television. Still the same way you deliver TV, but with now rich, engaging features. And as you see here at the top, it starts with branding. The user knows it's from you. It's personalized. You now live in the messaging folder inbox of the user. The messaging app is usually the most frequently used app on the smartphone. You now live in that home. Separately, you have features. You have the ability to have buttons to tap. And we've seen with our own experience that if the user has to type one or they can tap yes, they are going to have a higher uplift than tapping yes than typing. So having tap over type is huge. Having rich cards makes it a lot more interesting and engaging. You'll see higher conversion rates. Preview of URLs, and even rich features from Google like Wallet and Vertex. So we're taking this to now make it a much more interesting canvas than what SMS was ever imagined for. Let's start with branding. This is probably the most basic but the most impactful. I would say everyone in this room, why are you still using SMS? You have a partner here today that can help you migrate your workflows over to RCS, and when the user's not reachable, you're able to gracefully fall back to what they're used to in SMS today. But if you have the opportunity to put your brand in front of those users, this is your opportunity to do that. Also, when you send URLs from a number, like on the left, you've seen in your own stats, users don't want to click that. They don't trust it, they're unsure, they don't know where that URL is going. On the right-hand side, not only do we put branding, but we also do previews of the URL thumbnail. We see at times 2x the uplift on those URLs. So if those URLs are important for your transactions, communications, just that simple change of converting your SMS with the same look and feel with URLs over to this branded experience, you'll have uplift and measurable uplift. And let's look at it from the user perspective. How do they feel about this? We did some studies. And from a user sentiment standpoint, it was fairly apparent. They like branding, fairly intuitive. But along the purchase journey, it's all positive. From recall to sentiment to likelihood to recommend to likelihood to purchase, it's all positive because it's a branded personal experience between you and your customer and vice versa. And other stats show that with that kind of experience, they're more likelihood to purchase. And in here, this is an experience from a leading electronics retailer in another BRIC country in Brazil. And you can see here, they've built an experience that is taking what they used to do on SMS and other OTT channels and reimagining in this manner to sell electronics. And they're seeing very dramatic uplift on that particular experience. So the user's happy, you have branding, what else? We're bringing the best of Google into this product. So you have integrations with maps. So if you have stores, you can push those locations to the user. We have integrations with calendar. If you have users who need to be somewhere, a flight, an appointment, you can push them a calendar entry to help with them being there and not having missed opportunities. We also have integrations with calling, in the native calling app, where you have direct integrations with Vertex AI, which is our cloud solution where you can access the Gemini LLMs and build very advanced Gen AI solutions. And you can still also do payments through links. So you can use GPay, you can use your favorite payment processor. You're not beholden to that, but it's also supported there. Some other features, we tried not to over-feature this product. We felt that these were like minimally viable because a lot of businesses have workloads already on website, web chat, and app. So the more you make it more exotic from that, the harder it is for them to implement. So we felt that these were the most minimally viable. So again, tap, not type features, smart replies and suggested actions. Your bot or workflows can give people options to tap versus typing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will see, if you do head-to-head A/B, you will see uplift on that. Separately, the ability to share, receive and share location, we found to be quite useful in many markets. Calendar events, URL deep links and previews, rich cards and carousels, so you're able to show your products or your particular promotions. Video sharing with thumbnail of the videos. We've seen TV broadcasters in other parts of the world or over-the-top video platforms using this because when they send URLs and messages, they don't preview, people don't click them as much. This helps them with their engagement. I talked about dial number. We also have integration with Google Wallet. So this starts to become interesting with passes, tickets, and affinity cards and other things like that now to be saved in the Google Wallet. And then lastly, PDF sharing, that I know in India and other markets they use messaging for payment submission and collection. This can also be used for that as well. These are all beautiful features. What does it mean for you as businesses? Higher engagement, higher click-through rate, higher conversion. This is measurable. If you implement this, you should definitely benchmark this against SMS. You will see uplift. As you go on the journey and start putting buttons, you'll see it outperform your first iteration. And so you should measure this and implement it. And these are just simple stats, just to give you an idea. And not only against SMS, we also looked at it against notifications, that many apps have notifications. But notifications are ephemeral. Once you swipe them, they're gone. This is a persistent channel with your brand in the inbox and your opportunity for that user to pick up that conversation at their choosing. And if you have a Gen AI solution in the back end, you have the ability to delight and continue that relationship with that user at their choosing. So we've seen higher engagement, 10x engagement versus just notifications in that. And so I would ask everyone that look at this to also, not against SMS, but look at other channels you're using and where you're getting higher click rates, return on campaign, and so forth. And you can build this with customized journeys. Working with Tanla, we have the ability, and with them, customized journeys for airline, banking, retail, from the entire user journey. So we're talking from awareness all the way to purchase and even post-purchase in those there. And so I know that this looks like a lot and very maybe intimidating if you've never done this before. You don't have to do it all at once. I would say do it iteratively. Any brand I meet, I say, take your current workloads as they are, port them over, measure the uplift. If you have a URL, you'll definitely see uplift, and you'll have a branded experience. So you can see where I'd call this the walk scenario, is you're able to implement this and see that. You then have the run scenario where you start putting buttons and cards, and then you can go full Gen AI within the sprint scenario, which is with the conversations. And again, in this room, you have a partner that can help you through that entire journey. Lastly, and I know that we probably need to update this slide with a few logos from our friends in Tanla and some of you in the audience, but we are very excited to have major leading enterprises, recognized brands using the service, and not only using it, seeing outcomes that are better than what they were doing before. So we are quite excited, and hopefully if I get a chance to speak to you again, we'll have some nice Tanla brands up here as well. So I don't know if I pass to you next.
So you have to stay here.
Oh, okay.
So we have some really exciting news to share. May I invite Uday Reddy, our MD, to come over here, our CEO, and make a very exciting announcement. Over to you there.
Good morning, everyone. I met Steve and his team probably 5 months ago in Mumbai. A lot of requests have come from our product team and mainly from our GTM team to meet Steve and his team in Mumbai. We spent probably more than half a day in our Carex team. Then I realized that Google is equally passionate to tie up with us. They saw the potential with Carex and Tanla on the day, and that's where we took the call to invest behind RCS in a big way. Then we both decided to meet again in London. We met in London within 15 days. Probably we met in probably 3.5 months ago. So then the magic happened. Okay, the two things happened in the last 3.5 months. That's how Carex and Tanla works, right? So first thing is we have become the largest player in India on RCS. and 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 Steve is not allowed to probably say. Probably we are the largest player in the world, right? And thanks to our GTM team, and so we would like to retain that pole position. Once we retain, we are there to retain forever, right? So that's number one. Number two, then we realized this RCS platform needs the map platform that has to be deployed at the telco level. So then I challenged my product team back in Hyderabad. They really worked hard in the last 2 months, and they have developed a map platform. And our team, mainly our CFO Arvind, has been closely working with one of the leading telcos in India. I said, like, we have to announce this in Barcelona this year, because we have the habit of announcing at least one platform every year. And this year we're going to announce Map Platform is our flagship platform. We just signed 5 minutes ago with Vodafone Idea Limited to deploy Map Platform. So with this platform, we are going to go global, Steve. What I promised Steve is, if I'm allowed to say in this forum, I'm going to take over his KPIs into my KPIs, right? So we were going to, on a serious note, we're going to invest a lot of money behind RCS, not only in India, but globally, okay? We are not a mere player. We understand this game very well. We would like to play platform play. We would like to invest a lot of money behind the solutions. Our Gen AI is going to play a very important role here. So we are going to emerge as one of the probably the largest player on RCS in the world. Thank you for support, Steve. It's a pleasure working with you and your team. Yeah, and thank you for that. Yeah.
This calls for a celebration, everyone. So can we have the champagne and the cake, please?
That's why the champagne is
Yeah.
Steve, while they're setting it up, would you
finish up?
Yes, say a few words, please.
Yeah.
So while they set up, I'll just conclude by saying this is a quote that is going out in another announcement, I think, later on today. And I just want to say that it is great to have a partner with the historical background, the scale, the competence, and the passion of a company like Tanla. I am very excited for you taking over all my OKRs, but more than that, in all seriousness, it's great to have people who are as invested in something as you are, and so thank you for that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Excellent. Is that a cake?
Yeah. This is how we celebrate. Deepak, come here. Here. Okay.
Explain the fire. GTN is not easy.
Now I know why we have a cake and champagne today. Okay. Ready? It's like we're getting married. Make sure I don't set myself on fire. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come, Gurmukh. No, it doesn't matter. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll invite some of the guys now, showcase what they have done.
And then we do the.
And then we do the. Great. So a lot of interaction with the audience. Obviously, they had a lot of questions. How do we build on RCS? Do we replicate what we have done on WhatsApp? Does it support conversations? How does it support different use cases that we have? So we want to take a few minutes in showcasing what some of our customers have done using this channel. May I invite Nikhil Dhar from Indigo, Head of Marketing. Yeah, please. There you go. Now you can just press green and.
Thank you, everyone. I think Steve has already set the stage. I think RCS is a sort of a great tool, and Indigo is also investing a lot in it. Before I go to the problem statement, etc., I just wanted to also give you the state of Indian aviation. I think we are at a very, very interesting junction at this point of time. Last year, Indigo itself only flew 100 million passengers. The Indian market is highly under-penetrated. If you look at the number of aircraft per million passengers, it's 0.5 at this point of time. And if you look at developed market like US, it's at 30. So you can imagine the under-penetration that there is at this point of time in Indian aviation. The second fact that I always love to use for Indian aviation is if you look at all the commercial aircraft put together by all the Indian airlines at this point of time, the government released this data early this year, 750. United alone has over 950 aircraft. So you can imagine the under-penetration and the impact and growth opportunities aviation has in India. And I think Indigo, we very strongly believe that what we are doing at Indigo is sort of nation building for India. Having said that, I think obviously there are some customer challenges that we have. Primarily, I think the first one is around the booking process. I think till now, traditionally, how the whole booking process has been developed is primarily keeping in mind a very frequent flyer rather than a new flyer. I think that's how people have always, and all the airlines continue to do the same. Second, there is also this whole issue around re-engagement. I think how do you ensure that customers continue to remain engaged? And third, I think, which is also becoming sort of a holy grail, is how do you provide same experience across all your online channels, right? There are different mediums from your own website to a platform like Meta to a platform like SMS and a lot of other platforms. So how do you continue to provide similar experience? And I think as marketers, one of the things that we are really realizing at this point of time is that you have to be where your customers are and they're engaged, right? And in that sense, we thought, why don't we leverage RCS to give the power back to the customers, which meant that if we already have an engaged customer with us in the SMS medium, why don't we get them to do the entire booking journey itself over there? Why do we have to move them out to a website or app to another link? Because any additional clicks means the possibility of a dropout, right? And who wants that in this day and age where anyways, everyone is so, attention span is reducing to 3 seconds with the reels anyways. So why do you want to give that opportunity? So we felt we give the power back to the customer and allow them to do the entire booking journey within the ecosystem itself. And I think the solution will help us do a couple of things. One, obviously, conversion rates improvement. I think we feel from a very traditional SMS, RCS allows us to do that. Second, as I said, seamless booking experience. So we'll be using our a generative AI bot to help do all of this. So it's easy, it's seamless for customers, and also we are using this bot across platforms, so it allows us to sort of provide that same experience. And lastly, I think personalization, and I keep saying this, all of us want mass personalization, which is a bit of an oxymoron, personalization and mass coming together, but I think that's the reality. But in aviation, I think there is also, what is important is not just personalization, I think it's also context. A person flying with their, for a leisure travel with their family is a very different person when they're flying for business, right? So while it's the same person, the context completely changes, etc. So how do we leverage that as part of this? So this is what we have done. I think we are very excited about this. We feel if a customer is able to do the entire journey within the RCS ecosystem, I think it provides us great sort of opportunity to tap that customer at a very engaged place and then really convert them. Additionally, I think it also allows to continue to upsell and cross-sell. I think that's something that any business which reaches a maturity stage, I think businesses move also from a acquisition to cross-sell, upsell. I think that's where we are also on. I'll just very quickly run you through a small video. So, thank you so much. And I think lastly, I just wanted to sort of refer to Stephen said, you can walk and then run. We are honestly decided to run rather than do anything else. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. And now I invite Kundan Jha. He on stage. He has run RCS successfully for all the lead acquisition programs. So giving us an insight into how RCS is running for them. Over to you, Kundan.
So good morning, folks. It's a sheer delight to be in front of this esteemed gathering and present my use case. So for people who don't know what Credit Vidya does, Credit Vidya is a new age fintech which is into unsecured lending in India. And in a way, we are helping with financial inclusion and also making customers more aware of lending and give access to people who don't have formal access to lending. So before starting this journey, I would like to tell you that why RCS? Why did we start with it? Because we have normal mode of communication, messaging and everything. So see, we started our journey with Carix and Tanla started almost 10 months back. Now it feels like ages because we have gone through a lot of ups and downs. So when we onboarded Tanla as a affiliate partner. So at that time, first month was pretty decent. After that, they were always at the forefront in terms of business. Just to give you a perspective, they contribute to almost 40 to 50% of my overall business, which is like an amazing number. Now, there were some, so predominantly they were into messaging, getting customers through messaging. And it was going good, but there were some issues in the market later on, like SMS prices increased. Later, the penetration ratio or delivery ratio of SMSs went down. I mean messaging, went down. So my cost of acquisition increased. My number of customers coming on board decreased because they were not able to see the messages. And majority of these messages were going into spam. So how to tackle this scenario? Because it's a business. We'll have to continue with the business. And if the end customer is not coming on board, that's an issue. We discussed, we sat with Carix, and then they said, why don't you start RCS? And I asked, I knew about RCS. It was, again, when Steve said earlier that it was, they tried to launch it 2-3 years back. There were some issues. And later, it was relaunched with a bang. So here, SMS is what? 200 characters limitation with a link. You don't have a click to action button, not put enough information, you just have a header. So if I put myself in my customer's shoes, I'll see that, okay, this is just a message with a link. It could be a phishing scam. Why will I click on this? So branding was an issue. When I saw the first template of RCS, I was like, this is great. So I have my branding, I have salient features of the product, and application link also below that. So, and at the same time, we give customer a choice to opt out if they don't want marketing communication. So, see, communications are of two types, right? One is a transactional and one is a promotional. So when you are acquiring customers, it's always promotional. Customers who are onboarded with you, whom you are retargeting, probably it will be transactional messages. But when you are acquiring customers, it's always promotional. And promotional messages have a lot of limitations in India. Of course, those limitations are meant for betterment of the end customer. So now, RCS once implemented, we implemented around December. The funnel, when you talk about sales, it's always about funnel conversion, because if you don't make money or the conversion is not good, there's no point doing business, right? So funnel conversion wise, click to CTRs are comparatively lesser than messages, because messages you have a big volume of use case. Here comparatively customers are lesser with RCS enabled mobiles, but person who is clicking on that message has enough information to proceed with the journey. So these customers tend to complete the journey on their own. Whereas when you talk about normal messaging, there are more window shoppers, because they'll click, they'll drop off in the journey. So my cost of retargeting them who have dropped off in middle is always high. Whereas when I compare it with RCS, its conversion is, if I give you a basic metric, the output, so cost per output is a person who has taken an end product with me, is 50% lesser compared to a normal messaging service. So this is the power of RCS, which we visualized, which we have seen. So once we saw the success story of RCS, then we sat on table with Carix, Tanla, and decided why don't we, and it was proposed from Carix's, and I'll not take the credit from them. So it was proposed that why don't we build a journey, a loan journey, and this is one of its kind in India. Nobody has done this till now in RCS. So loan application, if you can pull up the video for the product, that'll be great. Perfect. So it's like as easy as chatting with your loved ones, higher conversion rates. We are doing a lot of things in the background, but end result is very simplified product. But complications are at the back end. So you see this personalized one. Apply now. We take care of customer's privacy and everything. Just customer types his basic details, and we do verification of PAN and loan amount. Everything is decided here. Customer gives all his basic details, because when we were discussing fraud, fraud is not only done with customers, there are people who do fraud with lending institutions also. To avoid that, we need this data. So, and it's like once all details are filled, the end result is immediately given to the customer. So it's like you're chatting with your girlfriend, right? Experience is like that, so immediately. So hassle-free and not too many redirections. So that's how, and you can see the statistics, they are self-explanatory, that higher loan conversions, till now, to give you a perspective, 5K plus is trending around 800 million Indian rupees is what we have disbursed till now since December. So that is the empowerment which RCS has given us, and I hope folks at Google start to take it further so that our journeys also will develop over time, and because that's a continuous process. Thank you very much for giving me this time. Take care.
Thanks so much. That was so exciting and invigorating to know. Moving on to a panel discussion, quickly, may I invite the panelists on stage. Ramdas, he's a senior partner with McKinsey & Company, over 15 years of experience in TMT landscape. He's going to be moderating the session today. Our panelists, first we have Mr. Atul Mehta. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Ship. Are you mic'd up? Atul has over 15 years of experience in operations and enabling brands in their e-commerce journey and the entire logistics fulfillment. Next, I'd like to invite Kush Mehra. He's the President and Chief Business Officer at Pine Labs. Next is Parth Joshi. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at BharatPe and has created a really strong community of customers and merchants, has a very deep understanding of consumer aspirations. And I'd also like to invite Stephen once again on stage, please. And lastly, we would like to invite Mr. Vinod Bhatt. He's CIO at Vistara. Over to you, Ramdas sir.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and a very warm welcome to our panelists. Let's get started with, I think, where both the customer stories left off. And the one thought that struck me is if you combine three factors, the first factor is the ubiquitousness of SMS. I mean, pretty much everybody has SMS access, right? Second, if you combine that with the richness that RCS is bringing in and the power that digitization can do for businesses, I'd love to start off with a little bit of what's the art of the possible here, right? I mean, if you were to take a crystal ball gaze and say 3 years out, 5 years out, what could the transformation with some of this be? I mean, we saw a couple of vignettes which were already super inspiring. But where do we see this really headed to? Maybe I'll get Steve, you started because you've seen this across multiple players, multiple geographies. So let us get started with you.
Thank you. So I would look at this in one way is you have email or SMS today, maybe some OTT channels. In time, 5 years out, you can imagine pretty much every Android phone having this. With what Apple's mentioned, there's a likelihood of that now. And so basically every smartphone has the ability to do rich messaging now. Don't just do what you're doing now and port it over with the brand. I would look at like the airline use case. You have gate notification, serve a boarding pass. Don't only serve a boarding pass. Have buttons on there to do Wi-Fi, food, upgrade, reschedule. Things like that are going to make where the user now starts to live within the messaging experience with you. And in that, it's okay if they don't use the website as much or the app.
they're going to choose the medium in which they want to converse with you. Just like you don't care as much about the app versus a website or maybe calling. This is a new medium. This is a new paradigm. The most interesting part is, as the user goes into this, the most used app on the phone is typically the messaging app. You are now next to the sister, brother, father, and you're in a preferred position that if you give the user what they want in that experience, you now live in the area of close ties with the user in that sense. For me, as somebody who travels, having an airline do that would be huge. And that would make a big difference for me on what airline I choose as a consumer, is if they meet me in the medium in which I want to be in. So like, as I think of the future, I think of the future as looking at this as a new paradigm. And in many cases, in parts of the world, there wasn't this jump from 1-800 to website to app to chat. They just jumped straight to chat. So that's even more interesting in markets outside of North America, I think, in that sense. So I'll stop there.
Super helpful. I think, let's switch gears to how, enterprises see this. And perhaps I'll request Atul, ShipRocket, running complex logistics, and that to a marketplace. How do you see this, sort of rich media helping in fundamentally unlocking, sort of growth and experience from a ShipRocket perspective?
No, thanks for that. Just for a bit of context, we work with 40, 50,000 merchants. We enable their journeys while we also have those customers we engage with. And I think any rich conversation medium and all that we have been hearing from yesterday on having conversational commerce, engaging, is so relevant for all the SMBs and SMEs, because they have a story to tell, right? You don't know them like you know the bigger brands. You know an Amazon, you know a Flipkart, but you don't know the smaller merchants. And what avenue do they have to engage with you? You go to their website, you shop there, you spend 20 minutes, and then there are 3 days and maybe a couple of months after that when you as a brand can engage with them. And there you have the archaic choices of sending a very bland email or an SMS, or you can use something like an RCS to be able to bring alive the brand better. Right? To your question on what does 5-year down look like, I think while we are making some of the flows very easier and simpler, whether it is a booking flow or taking the loan, applying for a merchant, I think what I truly believe is going to happen is in 5 years you'll have marketing case studies of how people have used some of these capabilities to be able to create brand affinity, brand love in the way you are engaging. There's this example of a brand I ordered from. They premiered on Shark Tank India, Avimi Herbal, I ordered, and there was so much of order flux that all their orders were delayed, right? As a consumer, you're going to be so disappointed. Very smartly and intelligently, they started sending through WhatsApp, not through us just then, through WhatsApp communications of their brand mascot. They had Nana Ji standing in a warehouse, taking live videos of, see, these many orders are there. We are going to be late in delivering your order. That was an adversity. Yeah. They created it into an opportunity, which I'm talking about in this forum today, right? And I think any rich medium enables the brand owners and the enterprise owners to look at any such conversation not as transactional, but an opportunity to create affinity, to create love, to be able to bring alive the brand really well on how you engage, the language, the visuals, your fashion order is in transit. Imagine on RCS, somebody getting a message, can't wait to see you look in this new amazing dress you have ordered, this is how you can style it, etc. It just uplifts the brand, makes it so much, the experience, the emotional payoff of shopping from that website and the brand so much higher. So I think that's where I think all this enables the brands to do. So super excited and really happy to see what all the capabilities RCS enables here.
No, that's very, very helpful, Atul. And I think the enablement of SMEs is a huge unlock. And I'd love to pivot that point into a couple of sort of large players here from the fintech world. I think the SMEs are constant, but the nature of service is a little different, and it is about money. And whenever it's about money, it's about building trust. So I'm going to ask both Parth as well as Kush, how are you thinking about RCS to build further trust, both on your merchant side as well as on the user side? What are some of the things that you can think of from enablement of trust, in addition to everything around growth and service and so on and so forth?
Right. So I think I'm hearing some really exciting use cases that have been built around RCS. We come from a traditional payments world. For us, messaging is just a validation layer, right? It's like I need an OTP, and that's how I send an SMS, and that's about it, right? That's the beginning and end of it. I think first thing first, I feel this opens up a whole plethora of opportunities for SMEs, as you started, with. From a growth standpoint, I feel that today, if India has about, upwards of 35-40 million retailers spread across the country, the number of retailers who have been digitized, or companies like ourselves who've gone ahead and digitized those retailers, it's a lot of, legwork and investment and, infrastructure and so on, right, that goes into it. First and foremost, I feel when I look at the possibilities around RCS, I feel today businesses which are, for example, online first or only operating on Insta, creating a store online and selling as a D2C brand, today they are the biggest beneficiaries. But what about those 20 million, mom and pop stores? They never make it. It's very hard, right? Because I think in the consumer's mind or the retailer's mind, if I run a brick and mortar store, I'm a brick and mortar retailer, right? But guess what? I've got all the products, I've got all the supplies, I've got all the pricing benefits, but I'm not able to make it to that customer who's not sitting in my same city or town because I do not have an online store, right? So I feel as a business idea, I feel that there is that much promise in this that you can, for example, companies like us, I can create the next million merchants without going in with a point of sale terminal or a QR code device, bring them, onboard them real time onto a messaging platform, set up their entire store. We bring the power of payments in terms of giving payment authorization, split payments, buy now, pay later. So, those are areas that we cracked over the last, decade or so. I feel there can be a really nice plugin on all payment flows, which can be backed on a messaging platform where RCS is, helping trade. To your question on trust, of course, right? I mean, a financial transaction is a transaction of trust first, right? When it comes to, the security aspect of it, companies like us make sure that, this is one area that is prioritized over any growth vector that you can think about, right? Because people are trusting you with their money and the monies are moving through your systems, day in and day out. I also see one of the largest areas of breach and fraud that today happens for those people who are not the experts in understanding how a payment transaction works, and somebody is able to basically scrape an SMS out, which is an OTP being given, and then run a fraud on your card, right? So I would be very keen to know that how secure is this journey going to be? What are the kind of audit trails available, right? If I have gone onto an RCS platform and I'm then going back and saying I want to dispute a transaction, are there the right, available flows in RCS that helps me to dispute a transaction? Can this be taken as a legitimate, authorization for payment transactions by the regulator? Because today if I send you a message on, or any link on WhatsApp, guess what? That's not a validation layer. It has to come as an SMS from your telco is when you say, oh, this was the OTP, right? So I feel that the security aspect has to be tightened up, because if it becomes a full commerce platform, I mean, the volumes will go through the roof, right? And then how do I make sure that that level of encryption and audit trails and, data security for the consumer are not compromised? So I'm assuming it's evolving as we speak, and I'm sure as we go along the way, these use cases will get solved for. But I feel very excited. I love to come here one day, stand here on the podium and say, my business grew 300% thanks to RCS. So I think I'm the one who missed out on that opportunity. Absolutely. I don't want to be here. I want to be there.
We'll put that down as an OKR.
For sure.
like you rightly said, right, this business of money is business of trust. Now, not many people know we were actually one of the first adopters of RCS back in the early days before you guys rolled it back. Hopefully it's better now. Hopefully it's better now. See, I think there are 3 layers of trust when you look at it from a consumer perspective which work for RCS. I think number 1 is just the business that we are in and the brand that we are in, because people trust us with money. RCS allows us to validate all of that. That's available with other platforms as well, right? But that kind of reinforces that trust, puts a credibility in there. Second thing, I think there is a legacy to this inbox, right? Since people have had phones for the past 30 years, they've had this inbox. It was just not very user-friendly, right? That legacy also inherits trust. And like Kush mentioned, it's been used for sensitive transaction because the regulator sees that it's okay as a channel, right? So again, there's that trust that is being built over time, and I think that's a good combination. The third thing that happens on trust is, I think obviously there are multiple companies that are doing apps, but there are very few OEMs, right? And people tend to trust OEMs more than they trust the apps, right? So when it's a native experience, right, it increases trust again. So you have a native experience, an inbox which has been used for regulatory activity and OTP transactions and highly trusted activity, and on top of that you have the brand verification coming from a brand. So I think the confluence kind of creates very interesting opportunities, right? That the same sort of 3 players coming and reinforcing that message of trust. Now, and I agree with Kush. I mean, the regulator view on this becomes very important. How can they see the traceability of it to make it more useful? But even more importantly, I think it's just about going there and seeing how the users react to it now in the new avatar, right? And continue building their trust. Don't break their trust. Continue building how we can build more value to the user. Nikhil was showing about how they were doing boarding passes and bookings on this, and the gentleman from Credit was talking about the loan approval process. That's great from an experience stuff, but the consistency of your messaging, of your communication, and the value add is what, at the end of the day, will build, make the user trust the platform. And if we lose that consistency, and that remains to be seen, that if we lose that consistency, then we lose the trust, right? I'm very excited to use RCS, and like Kush said, would love to see the 300, 500,000% increase in volumes. Please put it down in your OKR as well. No, but we have to be careful, right? It's a little bit of an uncharted territory. It is the ease of abuse is very high, right? So we have to use this channel responsibly, and it's not about one player in the ecosystem. It's about all the players in the ecosystem. Because if 5 players started spamming and putting out just random stuff, it will again become like an SMS inbox which has 500 unread messages and it never gets opened.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Parth. So, Vinod, I think we spoke about airline industry having a very high bar on customer experience, right? How do you see RCS build terrific customer experience for Vistara?
See, first of all, I would like to thank for having me here, privilege, and congratulations to Tanla for amazing journey. I think the case study yesterday was phenomenal, so congratulations. See, from our perspective, I will probably put this in a different context. I will put the context of the business. So if you look at it, this is the touch point we're talking about, where you are using RCS to use it with a purpose, whether it is for the messaging platforms, you want to convert into a commercial, you want to elevate your brand. Let's leave that aside. Let's come to what will make RCS more successful. Let us understand it. At the end of the day, it is a value game. See, if a customer is there, they're going to see whether it is going to book the tickets, going to get a loan, going to get the authorization done. That's what they are going to look. It's a value, right? It's the time is value. The work is getting done. So it's important to look at the data behind it. So it's very important to devise a very good data strategy. Data strategy which is more driven by the new AI, Gen AI concepts, moving from a typical personalization to hyper personalization. See, people talking about give us a platform to push campaigns. Now we have got this RCS. If you cannot use RCS to target a segment of one, which we call it hyper personalization, then you are not leveraging it. What are we talking about? Sweat the asset. This is what it is. So if you are able to make sure that the content which flows and the purpose of this channel, you can have RCS for different purposes. So you need to define the purpose of this effectively, because if you hurt customer experience once, you are going to lose them forever. So you need to do that right. So for us, from airlines perspective, getting the 360-degree view of the customer is very important. So you use all these technologies to make sure that you understand, identify the customers well. And then you start putting the lens of your marketing, your offers, your services. I think it makes a lot more sense. And RCS, I believe personally, it has a huge future. And the way we saw the case studies today, I think you can run the business. You can effectively run the business, and the only limitation you will have is your own imagination. There are tremendous case studies, tremendous use cases. You go over the drawing board, if we put 4 or 5 of us on a whiteboard, you will get at least 50 use cases for RCS. That's what the business is all about. So I think it's amazing, I would say, power in the hands. So we need to use it responsibly. It has to have trust. It has to be okayed by regulators, because the SMS today gives an advantage that you have a delivery point. So the ability to switch for those undelivered messages, if you are only talking about messages, has to be built in this. And where the regulators can sign that, I think it is good to go. I think that's only 2 cents from me.
Oh, fantastic. I think very, very well said, Vinod, in terms of using user behavior, understanding the users to good effect. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the use cases are up to our imagination. I mean, each of you could come up with 10 use cases that could accelerate your business and improve your experience. I'm going to switch gears now to a slightly different format. It's a rapid fire format. 1 sentence answer to the question. Okay. What's your dream wish list from RCS? 1 line. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I'll start from you and go all the way there.
Dream wish list.
I think more seamless two-way communication. I think how well it enables two-way communication can be a game changer for brands going by the same methods of how brands can create affinity. So just some innovation there on making two-way communication much more sharper, seamless, AI integrated, helping the merchant, auto-solving something, etc.
So seamless, so I think you couldn't hear that. Seamless two-way communication with a lot of automation built in. I think that's his 1 line.
I think one expectation, which I'm assuming will be the tough part to solve for, is that I feel that while RCS is great, but somehow it has to kind of come in and fit into a very rudimentary technology environment of the country, right? What happens is that many of the businesses or products that are launched don't end up becoming extremely successful because they have a high degree of automation, but the entity they want to partner up with does not have the APIs, hypothetically, right? Like, for example, we want to build a lending use case that you come and make a choice. I'll give you 6 banks to choose from and you can give a loan, right? Guess what? This entire loan onboarding journey in a traditional bank in India, and without naming them, talking about some of the largest banks, is non-existent. So if they don't have the API and if they don't have digitized their own journeys, I can't take the product out into the market. So, I mean, how do you come in and kind of operate in this environment where, like I said, the tech is archaic, the products, product owners, let's call it, or the brands do not have that degree of automation. How do you come in and kind of handhold them to come and get onboarded? I think will be a very tough one to solve for. If you can solve for it, then you can scale very fast.
No, I think it's a terrific point in the sense that we have perhaps the widest disparity in, sort of tech maturity, literacy maturity, financial affluence. So I think if there is a platform which can, and Steve, you touched upon it a little bit when you were talking about it, it has to cater for somebody who is not tech savvy, and it has to cater to somebody who's perhaps the most tech savvy in a seamless fashion. So this fallback to normal SMS, giving multiple options. I think there is a little bit of that. How do we straddle the spectrum here between both ends of the divide, right? To you, Parth.
Is to build for the billion users, right? How can we make it, right now you talked about tap and not type, can you make it speak and not tap, right? How can you make it more vernacular in the large plethora of the world's languages? Because that's when you're going to go really, really deep with the user set. And how do you kind of build in not only this platform, but an ecosystem and partners? You talked about various payment partners that you can integrate apart from Google as well. But what's that larger ecosystem that we can build around it through sort of development partnerships and development platforms, which actually gets more people to build for this, right? And makes it more usable for a larger set of people. I think that is the big, hairy, audacious goal. And I think that I can imagine a world where we don't need apps and websites, and all of this could be done within this.
That's a powerful statement, Parth.
RCS. So you need where your deepfakes, the identities are stolen. I think you may have to put a lot more focus on that. I'm not too much worried about the functionality. I think it will work because that's what, you have got technologies available today. But how do you make it responsible? How do you make it authentic? How do you make it trust? And how do you make it seamless and automated? Probably would be my 2 cents.
Fantastic. Thank you. Steve, one rapid fire question for you. I think we heard the sentiment in multiple, sort of panelists that there is a growth aspect that's very important, but there is a trust aspect from the user side, right? What are 1 or 2 things that RCS is thinking about which actually comes from a user perspective of limiting spam, only sending relevant messages, increasing security? What are 1 or 2 big things that you folks are working on?
We do not think of it this way: it's a framework in which to communicate with the user, both transactional and promotional messages. You do not want to have a magazine where it's all advertisements and no articles. And those advertisements need to be relevant to the user as well. The user wants them. If you didn't opt in, it's going to start becoming a problem. And I think what we saw a few years ago where we had to take it down to then rebuild it, you saw what we lost in that sense. The user now has the ability to block and report. And as a brand, I would hope that no one would want that from their own user base. And so the user has the control to do that. And we also have the metrics to see if they're even reading them, the messages, if, again, they're blocking and so forth. So I would be mindful of, this is a relationship very rich that if abused can work against you and work against the industry. And I'd come to say is good design. As everyone is answering their questions on the earlier one, mine, I have a different perspective, good design. We are almost like a website browser or a TV manufacturer. We only have value as a framework if people who put good content, people will only browse the internet if the websites are good. People will only use a Samsung or LG television if there's good sporting shows and movies and so forth. So this is your role is to have really good experiences that the users trust, that the users want to engage with, and the users have actually opted into those experiences. And if we do that, this is built with encryption, this is built with the GSMA and the carriers. This is all these things that everyone has said right now of the carrier grade, carrier trust, native, it comes to, go look at the phones in the handset pavilion. They're coming with this preloaded on the Android ones. This is coming, and now this is our opportunity to take this new paradigm and actually make it useful in business outcomes.
I think we are almost up to time, so I'll leave with one final question for all of us. And this is, I'm going to give 3 choices, and you have to make which one of them will you value the most. And this is, I think Uday spoke about investing a lot behind this RCS paradigm, and so did you, Steve. I think the investments could be in 3-4 areas, right? And this is truly shaping this together. All of you talked about, unlocking growth, service, experience, trust. What are the 3 areas? And I'm going to give 3 options, and I'd love for you to give your input so that we come back, we meaning Tanla and RCS come back to you with great use cases which can unlock growth, right? One is investing behind user intelligence, right? I think you spoke about, Vinod. If you are going to use all this richness and send the same message to everybody, that's doing disservice to your user and to the platform's capabilities. So one thing is to invest behind user intelligence, right? And come to you with things like channel affinity, brand affinity. I mean, where do they respond? When do they respond? How do they respond? Only on weekends, only at night, only when there is an image, only when there is a discount offer, etc., etc. That's user experience and user behavior. The second thing is a lot of capabilities around native solutions. I think what Nikhil and Kundan spoke about is a good example of native solutions, but we can go deeper in native solutions, right? Can we invest more in, some of you talked about automating more, right? Making it easy for people to complete end-to-end transaction within the chat flow. So let's call the second one native solution. And the last and final one is amping up on security, prevention of spam, prevention of scam. So this becomes extremely clean and relevant, right? So those are the three. All three are important. It's a tough question. It's a trade-off, right? None of this is not important. All of them are extremely important. But if you had to stack rank or put the top priority in your mind with a one-line explanation, what would that be? We'll go from the other side. You start this off.
Difficult to pick one, but I will give the order. Probably that will be better. So I would probably first pick the trust last one. I think that will be the highest one because it supersedes everything. And second will be the user experience, the first one which is talked about. I think that will be the second one. Third is absolutely important because this is like first two are starting the car. Third is you can actually go to the top gear and move it around. So it can actually leverage the power of RCS using the third one, which is using the native capabilities.
Fantastic. Well framed, Vinod. Parth.
Right, the first two that talked about are actually table stakes. If you don't have trust, the people will not come. You don't have a platform. If you're not doing personalization, people will not find it of value. You don't have a platform. You need the first two for the platform to be successful, right? And then you start adding value. The real power is the unlock is actually getting those native experiences, etc. Right? That's what the platform really powers. But if you don't do the first two, the third part will never happen.
So the first two are very clear that it's trust, user intelligence, native experiences.
I think both 1 and 2, trust and user intelligence, go hand in hand, in my view. I think also, let's say markets like India, which have a super active regulator, while trust is great, but I feel there has to be a regulator, driven framework that has to come in, which defines the do's and don'ts, which gives you, like for example, today for any kind of transaction service that you avail, which could be via a bank, which could be via fintech, which could be via an NBFC, there are very clear regulatory frameworks in place, right? And you have to make sure that all boxes are ticked for you to be compliant, right? So I feel that as this gathers more steam, there has to be a regulatory framework which will solve for the trust part also. It will also solve for the customer intelligence part. Many times, the service is absolutely kosher, but the customer's understanding or intelligence is low, and that's when, some breach happens, right? But I feel if we take it upon ourselves and create the framework and get the regulator involved, it will solve for most of these problems of trust in consumer. Then, of course, in terms of how much can we build on the platform, I feel the more open the architecture is going to be, that we let the developer community to come in and build on top of it. Every day new use cases will come out of it, right? And I'm assuming that's the lens that it's been built with, right? That it helps you to build on top of it, being a platform of platforms rather than, being a closed loop product service. Because the more closed loop it is, the less it will scale. So I think that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I'll say from a view of what should Tanla or RCS focus on next couple of years, I'll say maybe user intelligence. Trust, I'm saying, is table stakes. Right? It's whether the product is up. And then you can go a long journey there, but I'm saying even if you're at a base level on trust that people start not doubting the validity, it's good. User intelligence not only helps make it much more richer for whoever is using, right, getting more value out of this platform, plus also some elements of preventing it from becoming another inbox where everyone is sending everything to everyone. And to discourage folks from doing that, you need to have a carrot, and that carrot has to be Don't do this because there's a better way to do it, which is where the element of user intelligence comes in. I think the native experience is like North Star, like Parth was talking about. You don't need an app or a website. So maybe that can take some time. And once you solve for 1 and 2, you can move to native experience.
Super. I think this user intelligence is going to solve many things, and it's going to solve trust as well, and then we build after that to native platform. So first of all, thank you very much for a very inspirational set of inputs and a very exciting set of opportunities going forward. I'm expecting all the 4 of you to be on this side of the stage next year to talk about the 5x, 10x growth and the improvement in experience that has happened. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Steve, thank you for making it all the way from the US. It's been a fabulous panel. Thank you to the audience for being such a lovely audience.